So a couple of weeks ago, I turned My Little Pony villains into heroes, and that made me think I should turn Disney villains into heroes as well. And so today we're going to pick a few villains from some of my favourite Disney films, talk about their backstories, design a hero or good version of them, and discuss the potential ways they could have been good characters. Now I will be drawing some concept arts before I make a final design, just so you guys know as well. And remember, this video is just for fun, so please don't take anything in here too seriously. Now without any further ado, let's get started. So first off, we're going to start with Lady Tremaine, and don't worry, we're not going to justify what she did. She absolutely did abuse Cinderella, but when you do look at her history in different adaptations, you would find a woman who could have become someone very different if her life had taken a few different turns. And so, before Cinderella, Tremaine actually lived a somewhat happy and elegant life. Both the 2015 adaptation film and the Valentino book imply that she once loved her first husband very deeply. She came from a family of wealth and ran a stable home, and she also raised Anastasia and Drizella with genuine affection, from what it seems like, with how the girls are very comfortable with their mother. So from this, it seems like she wasn't really born a cold or cruel person. She was just a normal mother until tragedy unfortunately struck. When her first husband died, everything seemed to change. She was left alone in a time where women had very little financial independence, and for 6 years she tried to hold her life together, and that vulnerability set the stage for everything that came next. And so when Tremaine remarried Cinderella's father, apparently his name is Richard in the Valentino book version, Tremaine saw safety again, and in some versions she really did try to make this marriage work, but it quickly became clear that Richard was still in love with his late wife, and Cinderella received all the affection, so Tremaine wasn't really treated like a partner. In my opinion, she was kind of like treated more like a convenient mother figure and a source of wealth. Or at least this is how it's described when it comes to her relationship with Richard in the Valentino book. Of course, this doesn't excuse her choices and how she treated Cinderella, but it still explains the emotional pressure that she was under. And so, in our alternate universe, Tremaine doesn't really remarry out of fear or desperation. She actually allows herself to grieve first and takes time to recover, to stabilize her family and to rebuild her confidence. And when she eventually does fall in love again, it's with someone who respects her, someone who sees her as more than a replacement wife. This alone completely changes her mindset, and if she does, let's say in this alternate universe, ends up with Richard anyways, she would then enter Cinderella's life feeling secure and not threatened. This Lady Tremaine would recognize Cinderella's kindness and sees her as a young girl who's also grieving. Also, in the 2015 adaptation film, we see a glimpse of a Tremaine who could have been good, like when she let Cinderella sit with her sisters whilst they were practicing singing and drawing. In my opinion, that was Tremaine's way of including Cinderella as a part of her family, of course, until her father died. And in this alternate universe, Lady Tremaine leans into that instinct where she keeps including Cinderella even after her father passes away. So she keeps the girls together, she encourages their talents equally, and she teaches Anastasia and Drizella empathy and manners, and of course to not pick on their other sister. Now I actually want to talk about Tremaine's attitude and behaviour after Richard's death, because I feel like that was the spiralling point of when she changed her attitude, especially towards Cinderella. In canon, everything darkens when Cinderella's father dies. Tremaine shuts down and turns Cinderella into a servant. But in this alternate universe, this becomes the moment where she steps up the most. She remembered what it was like to lose a husband, and she sees Cinderella's griefs and protects her. She becomes the stable maternal figure that Cinderella desperately needs. She would continue to run the household, but does it responsibly, and maybe she will also learn how to cook and clean for the sake of her girls, even though she's not very good at it. So in this alternate universe, Tremaine becomes a disciplined but loving mother who expects good manners and effort, but never cruelty, and becomes the sophisticated, protective mother figure that she could have been all along. Right, now moving on to the character design. Disney Cinderella was supposedly set at around the mid-1800s, so I used outfit inspirations from this time period. I wanted to make a quick sketch of Lady Tremaine's good side just so that I can have some overview of her altering character. And the first thing I thought of is her comforting Cinderella as a child. I think that Cinderella's father is supposed to be some sort of merchant that travels away quite a lot, which is shown in the 2015 live adaptation, so I would imagine that young Cinderella would get quite upset when her father leaves. This is when Lady Tremaine would come in and comfort her, telling her that her father would come back soon. And as I mentioned earlier, I did kind of use inspiration from the mid-1800s in terms of the dress I'm putting on Lady Tremaine. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this kind of dress is called, but it looks like a two-piece dress. And I basically drew her in this classic 1800s style and put her hair up in a bun because I felt like this made her look more motherly rather than an absolute sophistication. And then I drew 3 more concept styles for the types of outfits I felt that would be quite suitable for her old character. Now, the first style I went for was a bit more over the top. It had a lot of textures and a lot more layering, and it was also quite trendy to wear these long silky gloves, so I wanted to include that as well because I wanted Tremaine to still be very fashionable. I'm not very certain how wealthy her first husband was, and I'm not exactly certain how wealthy Cinderella's dad is supposed to be, so in terms of the dresses that she could afford to wear, I'm not entirely sure, but I would say that if she could afford to wear these really elaborate fancy dresses, she would. The second dress I find less common in the 1800 artworks that I see. It still hugs the figure, which is also fashionable at the time as well, but it has a robe on top which I thought looked quite comfy and elegant. And then the last style I went for is quite reminiscent of Tremaine's original style in the classic Disney film, and I feel like design-wise it balances both elegance and comfort, which is what I wanted to go for. I really wanted to give her mum vibes, so in the end I didn't want to make her look like she was getting ready for a ball, but more like she's ready to raise her girls. And after I kind of made my mind up when it comes to her outfit and her style, I then went for her final design. I did go for the last concept of her dress. I feel like the figure hugging shape is a bit more subtle, but I still wanted to keep her character to be quite angular. She's still, in my opinion, a sharp-witted woman, and this is not a negative trait, which is why I wanted to keep this kind of silhouette for her. Then, for her hair, I felt like the original Disney hair was done up in a sophisticated way, as if to show the fact that she has the time to do her hair because she's forcing all of the household duties onto poor Cinderella. And so, to change this, I kind of gave her a more loose bun style. I'm not very certain whether or not this kind of hairstyle was very popular in the 1800s, but when I was looking at the Disney's live adaptation, Tremaine had I'm not even sure what to call it. She had curled styled hair. I couldn't really tell if it was in a bun or not, but I wanted this Tremaine to have a loose bun because maybe after Cinderella's father died, she took it upon herself to help with the household, so she wouldn't really have the time to keep her hair in a complicated style. People might be asking, if this alternate universe Lady Tremaine is a bit more responsible and a bit more, smart with the way she spends her money, because apparently in both the Disney films, she wasn't very smart with it. She kept using it on her daughters and splurging it. Then wouldn't she have enough money for, maids and servants to help her around the house? And in my opinion, I'm not too certain that would be the case anyways, because at some point they will run out of money. I'm not sure where she's even getting any income from, and at some point she will have to let a few helpers go anyway. In my opinion, she would probably end up in the same kind of situation anyway, even in this alternate universe. And instead of forcing Cinderella to basically take upon all the household chores and those kind of things, she would basically do it herself and or raise her girls to help her with it. Anyways, moving back onto the character design, instead of giving her a red dress, which I felt signified authority, I gave her this decorated green 1800s dress, and it's to show that she is still quite an elegant lady, but she's not demanding authority, and now I think she looks a bit more fun, a bit more relaxed, whilst also staying her elegant ways. I think I mentioned this earlier, but I truly do believe that Tremaine is a very fashionable lady, especially when it comes to the 2015 adaptation film. So I wanted to keep that trait of hers because I think it's really, really fun, and I feel like that would be a way for her to be really close with her girls and Cinderella as well. And it would be really fun to see the scene where Tremaine and the girls are really excited to go to the King's Ball, but instead of excluding Cinderella, she's also really excited to pick out dresses for her and for the girls. Next up, we're going to talk about Ursula, and to understand how Ursula could have been good, we first need to look at who she was across the different versions of My Little Mermaid. In Disney's canon, Ursula is portrayed as an exiled sea witch, banished for practicing dangerous and forbidden magic. We never did see her childhood, but other materials like the Broadway musical imply that she may have once been close to Triton, possibly even his sister. But before Disney's version, there was the Hans Christian Andersen's original Sea Witch, who was nothing like a villain at all, at least in my opinion. Sure, she was a little strange and she was quite intimidating, but she was honest. When the Little Mermaid came for help, the Sea Witch explained every consequence very clearly. She didn't deceive her, she didn't twist her words, and she didn't want to really harm anyone, at least not on purpose. In other words, the earliest version of Ursula wasn't really evil. She was simply a powerful woman who didn't sugarcoat the truth. And not gonna lie to you guys, I did look by the way, but I have no idea what forbidden magic is in terms of this canon, because when we look at how Ursula performs her magic, it's not really unusual. She uses potions, but what's so evil and forbidden about that? And then when she turned Ariel into a human, I was maybe thinking turning another creature into a different creature counted as forbidden. Maybe that's the reason why it's forbidden magic and that's the reason why she's dangerous. But then Triton did the exact same thing to Ariel at the end of the film. He turned her human. So then I thought maybe turning someone else into a different creature isn't forbidden. But then what is? The only other thing that I could think of was perhaps the concept of the contracts. Maybe that was a bit unfair, but that wasn't really forbidden, at least not in my opinion and version of what forbidden even means. Because Ursula did say that should Ariel fail and she turns back into a mermaid, Ursula would own her. But the thing is, Ariel signed that contract willingly. She wasn't forced or coerced into signing it. Ursula gave her the situation and what she could do and how she could successfully do it. Granted, Ursula did mess about at some point, which messed up with the contract, but still, Ariel signed up knowing that if she failed, she could potentially get herself owned by Ursula, and she signed that willingly. So again, my point is, what is the definition of forbidden magic or dangerous magic in this canon? If someone could let me know in the comments below if they found anything, that would be very useful as well. Anyways, whatever this forbidden magic even is, that was one of the biggest reasons why she was outcasted from the mermaid kingdom. So instead of touching the forbidden dangerous magic, Ursula would grow up using magic safely and responsibly, and her abilities would still make her very powerful, but in this version she becomes well known for healing spells, transformation magic and protective enchantments, those kind of thing. Nothing forbidden, nothing harmful, and again, I'm not sure if the whole contract business is the reason why it's called a forbidden magic, but then she won't do any of that contract business. So in this version, Ursula and Triton would be either siblings or simply political partners, and they basically work together to run the kingdom. Triton handles the throne and the laws and maybe the military side of ruling and stuff like that, and Ursula becomes the magical advisor of the ocean. And I feel like since Ariel and her sisters have lost their mother, Ursula, this good version of Ursula, would step in to become the maternal figure of their family, and she would be like this cool magical aunt that basically doesn't really listen to Triton, and if Ariel were to go up to her and say, I want to be human, Ursula would try to either convince Triton to let her have a go at being a human and keeping an eye on her very safely, or turning her into a human anyways behind Triton's back because she does whatever she wants. The original Ursula seems to be quite knowledgeable about humans as well, so I was thinking that perhaps Ariel would spend her days just hanging around with Aunt Ursula, asking her about what humans did, and would basically get really close to her because of her knowledge about humans. And so for her concept art, I wanted to showcase Ursula in a way where she still looked like herself, and by that I wanted to keep her octopus traits. After all, octopi are apparently very clever creatures, and this defo suits Ursula since she's a very smart woman as well, without a doubt. I did have a thought that perhaps I should design her to look like a mermaid instead of like an octopus, but I did hesitate on this since this type of design wouldn't really suit Ursula, and it's kind of like the easy way out in my opinion, and it wouldn't really look like Ursula, which is what would have disappointed me if I went with the mermaid version. So at first I wanted to get a sense of what she would be like just by changing her hair, since at the time I was kind of stuck with the character design. So I basically kept everything the same and just changed her hairstyle to be a bit more drag queen like, since she was inspired by the drag queen Divine. Then I started experimenting on different variations of her clothes, quote unquote. Her original fit isn't really a fit, but it was more like a long black hard neckline dress. So the next concept played into that, but added a bit more ruffles and pearls in a diagonal pattern. And I gave her, of course, the really big drag queen like wig, again reminiscent of the drag queens. But in my head I was still thinking, should I really turn Ursula into a mermaid? So this kind of design that I'm doing at first, the first concept art, right? I was trying to make her have a bit more of the mermaid aesthetics without turning her into a mermaid. So you see that long flowy type of like fabric and those ruffles over there and the pearls especially. I wanted her to look like a mermaid at this point, but then again I kind of went away with that idea. And so for the second concept, I actually found this picture of Divine where she's basically wearing this really long mermaid style red dress, and I thought, wow, that is very iconic. I must do something about this. I tried to basically draw Divine's dress onto this concept art, but instead of giving her that like tulle like material at the end of the dress, it would be more like fan corals. I did also add some fish bones across her design in here because I thought it would make her look really cool, but instead she kind of looks like a villain, so I did avoid this in the final design as well. And so for her final design, I did take some inspiration from the giant Pacific octopus, which are known to be quite extreme mothers, and this is because they basically guard their eggs until they die. And this made me think, in our alternate universe, Ursula would have felt so protective of the girls, especially after their mother died, and would probably end up stepping into that maternal role, like what I said earlier. Now, I don't really think that Ursula would replace their mother in that way. Like, she wouldn't be nagging them or anything. She wouldn't be too, I suppose, overtly into their lives. Like, she wouldn't be telling the girls no boyfriends until this age, that kind of thing. She would just be like the maternal figure who's also the cool aunt that everyone confides into. And I have like this kind of headcanon that perhaps if Ursula was a good character, Triton would be quite jealous of her relationship with the daughters, because the daughters would feel a lot closer to Ursula and would confide with her with all their little secrets, and Triton would be like, oh, what did they say? Can you let me know what their secrets are? And Ursula would just refuse outright. In this universe, she would definitely be a girl's girl, and I feel like that would be one of the reasons why Ariel and her sisters would be very close to Aunt Ursula. Anyways, I did basically use Divine's red mermaid dress on Ursula, and even her hair is quite similar to Divine's hair in that picture. Then at the tulle at the end of her dress, like what I said earlier, it would be made out of fan corals instead of the tulles that was like originally made. And as you guys could see, I added a bit more like accessories across her design. So she has this like headband that's also like very pearly, it has shells, and across her design as well she's got pearls, shells, starfishes, and I feel like this makes her look so whimsical. And I do love this just because Disney's Ursula was quite plain, and with a good reason, with a good purpose as well. But I feel like this whole version of her being so much more decorated, it's so fun to see. You might be wondering, like, why didn't I keep Ursula's white hair? Why did I give her ginger hair? And that's because if I were to go with the alternate universe that she and Triton are siblings, I don't know why, but I thought Triton had gingery hair. Or it seems like it's ginger hair. It might be brown, but I'm not entirely sure. But I was thinking that if he had somewhat of a gingery hair, I wanted Ursula to have gingery hair as well. And lastly, we have Facilier, and we are going to start off with who Facilier really is in the original Princess and the Frog film. Disney doesn't really tell us where he came from, but the clues are everywhere. It seems like he grew up poor because of how he has this resentment against people who are quite rich and well off. And with that, he felt overlooked and he was tired of being seen as insignificant. So his whole personality feels like someone who's clawed their way up from nothing. And the charm and the theatrics, the showmanship, those kind of things, they all scream survival in my opinion. And somewhere along the line, he learned real magic, but instead of using it to help people, he fell into a contract with the Friends on the Other Side group, who are spirits who gave him power at the cost of his own freedom. And that deal is what ultimately destroyed him. And before we jump into the alternate universe, I want to go through some fan theories that actually makes a good Facilier a bit more believable. And one of those theories would be that Facilier is actually related to Mngo.tea, possibly her grandson, maybe a great nephew, or at least, at the very least, he was maybe a former student. And the reason why people say this is because they both use New Orleans folk magic, they both speak to spirits. Mngo.tea also immediately recognizes him in the film, and she calls him the no good trickster. So it kind of makes it seem like she's just a really annoyed aunt talking about her nephew that somehow disappointed her, that kind of thing. So this kind of theory paints Facilier as not a random con artist, but someone who actually came from some sort of magical family or community and who could have learned the right way but strayed, unfortunately. For this alternate timeline, the turning point is simple. Facilier never makes the deal with the other side, so instead of diving into dangerous magic where he could potentially lose his life, and in the canon film he did, he stayed connected to the same tradition that Mngo.tea practices, the tradition that focuses on healing, clarity, protection, wisdom, those kind of things. His tarot reading becomes honest and tools for guidance, because to be fair, he was quite good at telling the future. I mean, it wasn't a lie that, for example, Lawrence was being a bit of a pushover. He was letting people take advantage of him, and to stop that, he needs to become a man who he always wanted to be, someone who's confident. It was just that this was also taken advantage of by Facilier, who made him think that all he wanted to be was to be the prince. So in my opinion, he does have the magic and the potential to be a good person, you know? And I feel like if he didn't make any contracts or promises or have spirits controlling him, he would be a different person entirely. So in this alternate universe, I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna go with that he's somehow related to Mngo.tea kind of alternate universe. He doesn't have to be her like nephew or anything, but he's somehow in relation to her. And with Mngo.tea as his guide, he basically strays away from the kind of dark side of voodoo and hoodoo, and she would be like the wise, eccentric grandmother figure, and he would be the younger, sharp, charismatic practitioner who works really close with the community. And in this timeline, he and Tiana would actually get along. He would be telling her that her hard work does matter, but so does believing in magic. And so, in my very first concept of Facilier, I wanted him to have this over-the-top charisma. When rewatching Princess and the Frog, I realized that he was quite the showman, and that was the reason why people like Naveen and Lawrence took some interest in him. He also had the best song in the film, in my opinion. Like, whenever I listen to Friends on the Other Side, I do feel like a Disney villain. So this is defo a trait I wanted to keep. In here, I wanted him to be singing to Tiana, kind of like telling her that she's almost there with her dreams and that she only really needs a bit of magic to reach it. But then, of course, I wasn't a big fan of the initial outfit I gave him. In my opinion, it was far too plain for a showman like him, so I got into brainstorming. Disney's Princess and the Frog was set in the 1920s, New Orleans, so I did some digging into what the fashion trends were for the men. And to be completely honest, the semi-formal and formal wear for men at the time is not too different to today's fashion wear. They had these loose trousers and different style blazers, and sometimes even a vest inside the blazer. The thing is, this is quite similar to today's fashion trends as well for the men's. The only difference is that the style is a bit more fitted. I am gonna admit in here that the kind of art style I use for Facilier makes it look like he's wearing flared trousers instead, and I promise that's not what I intended. The trousers are supposed to represent kind of like a loose fit style, but I kind of, not mess up, but in a way I kind of made it look like he's wearing flared trousers. Also, the styles I'm drawing right now are a bit more decorated, but that's because I wanted Facilier to stand out. I really wanted him to lean onto the magical showman type of vibe, so I added a bit more sparkle on his character as well. And so for his final design, I went for a casual but trendy type two-tone suit. Now I can't exactly judge his hair since I personally don't think we get to see much of it in the Disney's Princess and the Frog until the very end when he was being quote-unquote consumed by his friends from the other side. But the thing is, the whole situation was quite chaotic, so I couldn't really trust if the hairstyle I saw then would be accurate to his typical hairstyle under his hat. So instead, I kind of opt in for a more slick back type of hairstyle, which was also very popular at the time. And then for his suit, again, many apologies that it kind of makes it look like I'm giving him flared trousers. I promise you, this isn't flared trousers, it's supposed to be just loose trousers, but I really wanted that silhouette. I really like that shape for him, so that's why I wanted to keep that. But again, it's not meant to be flared trousers. I don't even know if flared trousers were a thing back in the 20s. Anyway, in terms of his blazer, I actually went for a more formal version. I wanted him to look very fancy, very showman-like. And the reason why I'm giving him a very fancy type outfit is because I believe that if he actually genuinely used his magic for good, no trickery or anything like that, he would definitely become a very well-known, successful kind of magic man. And that's because I feel like the characters in the show already knew who Facilier was. He was known as the Shadow Man, and Tiana knew him and was annoyed at Naveen for even getting involved with the Shadow Man, with Dr. Facilier. So I do think that the people in New Orleans already knew who he was. He was already infamous for something, albeit that something is not good. So in this version, he will still be quite well known in New Orleans, but this time it will be for a good reason, not for a bad reason. Now, in terms of his color scheme, I wanted to go with the theory that he and Mama Odia somehow related, or he was a student of hers, so I wanted him to kind of reflect that in terms of his outfit. So I gave him an off-white blazer and then a light blue pair of trousers, and at the end of both the blazer and the trousers, he will have these kind of glitter effects, and I feel like that makes him look very much so magical. And of course, I wanted to include a top hat, so I have him holding that as well. Well, that's all I have for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you do want more videos like these in the future, make sure you give a like and subscribe. Also, if you have an idea of which villains I should turn good next, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you all next Mango Monday. Bye!